Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Creators podcast, and I am your host, Michael. My co-host, Chelsea, is on vacation. She's doing okay, but she's on vacation right now, so it's going to be just me holding down the fort. But today's not going to be too lonely because I have a special guest with me, and this guest is actually a friend of mine. I've known him through Instagram for the last, I'd say almost a year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe less, but just about around that time. So please welcome to the podcast, Mr. John Imperial.
Hey, hello everybody. Hey, Michael.
Like that fanfare?
Yeah. I always like claps every time I speak,
Okay. I got some more of that if you want.
Yeah. On cue.
On cue. There you go.
Hey.
All right, John. Well, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
Good. I'm very excited to be here. I've always wanted to be
really?
on Coffee with Creators, even before I was friends with you. It's like, that would
Was
be
that
a
your
dream
only
come
goal?
true. Yeah. So after this, I'm done with content creation. This is it. I've reached the pinnacle.
No, I thought you were
Content
done
creating.
with our friendship just because you're
Well, that too. I'm done.
That's okay. All right, John. Well, please introduce yourself to the audience. I'm sure everyone would like to know what you actually do and how, what your content revolves around, and just, a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah. My name is John Imperial. I'm an architect in Anchorage, Alaska, and for about 2 years now, I started this content creation journey. I basically make videos on YouTube about, I like to say, life, tech, and architecture. Life being like just an overall encompassing things like life. It's everything. So basically create about things that inspire me, that is just very interesting to me, and I just tend to share that on YouTube.
Was YouTube your
And
first?
Instagram. Yeah.
And Instagram, okay. But which one came first? Which was your first dabble in social media?
It definitely was YouTube, because I think just like everyone else, when you first create content, right, you don't want to share it with people, you want to not let them know that you're doing this thing. So I started YouTube first, and my Instagram was pretty much a personal thing until I would say last year was when I really like made it public and shared it, opened it to people, I guess.
That's kind of different, because I'd say you're brave for starting YouTube. Most people that I know, myself included, I first had to gather up the courage to start a YouTube channel, and the first thing that I did was basically start Instagram. Kind of started off with showing products in my space, and then eventually inserted my face into the pictures. And that was like the hardest thing, because I didn't want people to see who I was. So from that perspective, it's very different that you started YouTube first, because obviously you have to, well, you don't have to, but you've shown your face basically on YouTube.
And it's easier to, I guess, at least you have some, if you started Instagram, you at least have an easier, not easier, but you have a base audience that hopefully can follow you on YouTube. But yeah, no, I'm usually the guy to just not want to. I'm more confident when I'm not around with family. I'll just say that, or people I know. So when I'm talking to other people, I'm more confident. Yeah.
It's weird, because it feels like they know you well enough that when they see you doing something different, which is showing, presenting yourself to the world, basically, you're tapping into like this other side of you, right? Like the side that's a little bit more confident, a little bit more, like, how they say that on camera you have to do bigger things, like to express things. Like your expression has to be bigger, because it doesn't somehow translate on camera. And like, I'm doing it right now. If you're watching this video, it's on YouTube. I'm very comical right now when I move. Yeah. But it's like the only way for you to really show true emotion, or for that to come across basically the media, which is weird, because I feel like a clown right now. I'm like moving around. But I think is that why you feel kind of embarrassed that when you're with friends?
I think so. Yeah. And just like the imposter syndrome is stronger with people because they know you the best. And so it's easier for them to be able to call you out when you're like, oh, no, you don't live your life that way. Like, for example, what if I talk about minimalism, right? And I just talk about minimalism on my channel. And people are like, you have so much gadgets. There's no way you're a minimalist, like things like that. It's just easier for
Actually,
people who are closer to you to call you out,
right. But do you think that people will call you out though? Or is it just a
No,
fear?
they wouldn't have the guts to call me out.
You see?
Yeah.
They're not even brave to call you out because you're doing something that's much more courageous than anyone else,
Yeah.
which is basically sharing your stuff, sharing your content, sharing yourself
Yeah.
to the world. And that is very scary, right? And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of people don't even start their own YouTube channel or their own Instagram because they're just scared. And I get it. Like there's no need to explain why it's scary. There's a number of different factors, but to what John said, I think it's important for people to remember that our fears, usually, like what John said, people might judge him, people might call him out. It doesn't really happen, to be honest with you. It doesn't really happen. And so, how do you feel right now, John? Do you feel like you're at a point where it's easier for you to share with your family and friends what you do, or even your video, your channel? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's definitely easier, especially now that, spoiler alert, like I left my job. They're like, "Oh, what are you doing now? What are you doing?" It's like it's easier, but at the same time, there's also that pressure of, because I care about them, I want them to understand. They're not asking me why I'm doing it or how this content creation is working out. Like how do you get money on it? How do you get paid? Like why are you leaving your steady income for this? Like they care. That's why they ask. And sometimes I feel like I have to explain more now because
I
I
see.
left my job. Wherein before it was just like, it looked more like a side gig or like a hobby, which in a
Don't you
way
think
it
they'd be
kind of
excited
still
about
is.
that though?
Oh yeah, they are, but they're just like, how does that work? And I'm
I
like,
see.
you get tired of like explaining. Maybe I should create a video and ask
You
my
should
family
create
to like,
an unlisted video
yeah,
that you only share with your family and friends explaining what you do.
yeah, and how it works.
Yeah, and how it
So,
works.
yeah, in that sense, yeah, it is, but it's easier to talk about it.
Hmm.
It's definitely easier. But when it comes to Instagram, there's still a struggle for me. Like, I don't want it to be, I would say it's 50-50 right now, my Instagram, that it's still pretty personal. I still try to post like personal things on there
Hmm.
because like, I'm just trying to share who I am and things I care about. So if I want to post a picture of me and my wife at a beach, I would post it still. I know some people are super like constrained by, oh, I just have to stay on the look of my grid and all of that, which
Yeah.
is fine. That's their strategy or that's what they want. But for me, I still want to be able to connect with my real, not real, yes, everyone's real, but like my friends and my family who are following me on Instagram too. I care about them too. Yeah.
Could it be that I think that's the more like you would feel less of an imposter if you did that? Because what you're sharing is real life, right? Like I get what you're saying. When I first started sharing my office space, I felt like an imposter. And the only reason I felt like an imposter, because none of that was fake. None of the things that I shared were fake. I just felt like an imposter when I would hear comments from people saying, your office space is great. You have the best job in the world. And me knowing that that's not the case, you know, um,
Yeah.
that was the biggest struggle for me. It's like, how do I make people understand that this space just looks pretty from certain angles? You know what I mean? And so I
Yeah.
started sharing more of like the messier side of things. And I got a lot more comfortable. And then now it's like, I'm not afraid to share. Like, so how does your cable management look like right now? It sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
not afraid to share that
Yeah.
because I'm just like you. I'm like a regular dude. I have some tools that I think can help manage that. And that's what I'm sharing. But what I don't want people to think is that I'm perfect because I
Yeah.
definitely am not. I would love to be perfect, but I'm not. So I
Do you
think
feel
that's,
it's weird that, at least for me right now, and I think it's pretty similar to you, like although you share about your regular life, I think we still post more about the social media stuff, right? But like when I meet with people, my friends or whatnot, or we have a conversation, a lot of what they comment on are the social media stuff, and they're like, "Hey, aren't you at 14,000 subscribers now?" I'm like, or sometimes he actually said 12. I'm like, yeah, 14 actually, and he's like,
You corrected them.
"Whoa." Yeah,
Should
but
have pushed him first. How dare you?
yeah, but it was just like so weird. That's like, man, this is what we're talking about. It's like, oh, I saw your desk. I'm like, oh, thank you.
It is weird. I admit. I don't, as much as possible. Not that I avoid it, but I don't ever bring it up whenever I'm in the presence of my friends and family. I don't ever bring up my work, just
Yeah.
because there's so many more things that I would like to talk about, and I'm more of the person who asks what they're doing, how they're
Yeah.
how they're doing, than talk about what I'm doing and what I'm going through. But obviously, when they ask, I don't shy away from it. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the garage door opener.
Yeah.
My
Sounds
wife
nice.
is. I already told her. I said I'm recording,
Yeah.
and then brr. You see, see, we had a problem with the garage just a few weeks ago. We oh, this is a funny story. So the lower panel of the garage is bent. So we needed it. We need to replace it. So I called a couple of like garage door people. I don't know what I don't know what to call them, but only one actually was very helpful, and they said, okay, just take a picture, because they needed to get like the exact make and model, whatever it is, and the size. It didn't actually have it, like the sticker that whoever installed it, the sticker on the garage door didn't have the information, only had the manufacturer's name. So I measured it and everything, took a picture, sent it to them. They're very helpful. Came over a few days ago, and they installed the panel. And then they installed the panel, and then they're like, it's all done. And I'm inside the garage looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And like, okay, good, great. So if you have any problems, whatever, just let us know. I'm like, cool. All right, bye. So closed the garage, left. Later that day, my wife comes home, calls me, starts yelling at me, and she's like, what happened to the garage? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Walk outside, the panel's just like, it's just like it's not a different color, but it's like, it's off. Like, it's not the same color.
Yeah.
So she's like, that does not look good. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I should have checked, but found out from the garage door company that the previous owner of our home basically painted the garage door. That's why the colors don't match. And so he said that all we have to do is just paint over it, basically, just to match everything. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's a little story I wanted to share on the side. Normally, I would share this to Chelsea, but since
it's all
she's
good.
not here, I'm sharing it with you, John. Sorry.
I'll be your Chelsea. Chelsea, don't worry. You're still Chelsea, but today I'm Chelsea.
Chelsea, I hope you're feeling better. I hope you're doing okay. I know she's on vacation right now. I'm sure she's doing fine, but I haven't spoken to her in a while. Maybe we can get her back sometime soon. But think about you, Chelsea. Anyway, so let's get back to John. Actually, let me do this so that John can feel better. There you go.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, John. So let's go back to that conversation about sharing it with friends and family. So you've gotten to the point where you're comfortable now. You're comfortable, and do you actually like talking about what you do to friends and family?
I do when I know they actually care. When they actually are trying to understand. Sometimes people would just like want to hear what you're doing or how you're doing, and then like try to suggest a ton of things about what you should do with your YouTube channel. You should do this. You should do that.
Let's hear him, John. I want to hear these suggestions.
Some of them are just like, oh, you should like do this, like start selling merch, and like, oh my gosh, like do like a ton of giveaways or whatnot, and then you're just like, yeah, that's a good idea. But then
That's
sometimes
kind of cool.
when I feel like it's a conversation that needs to be like addressed, then I explain to them why that doesn't work. So like giveaways, I don't really like doing giveaways to random people, encouraging people to share it. I like doing giveaways for just my actual followers.
Right.
So I don't even ask people to like share it or anything. Just them like the photo, and then I'll pick from you guys, basically.
Oh, that's kind of cool though, because I feel like the suggestions that you mentioned, because when you said suggestions, first thing that pop in my head are like some of the suggestions that I get. You know, it's
Uh
like
huh.
you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing that. You should be, it's like
Oh no,
they're trying
there
to
are
control.
those. Yeah.
Oh, there are those. Okay,
Yeah.
but from
So
what
it's like,
you're, Mhm.
oh, you should just focus on architecture. And then some people are like, no, you should like stop sharing architecture because it's so niche. Like you should share like other things, like do day in the lives and like do vlogs. It's like just like yeah, very
Okay, so I'm not alone in
out
that
there.
regard
Oh
then,
yeah.
because yeah, it's funny though because you would never say that to another parent. I mean, you
Yeah.
would, some would, and you just
Yeah.
want to clock them in the face when they
Yeah.
say, you should do this to your child. Like, listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like me going up to the doctor and say, why are you using that tool? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's you can't do that, right? Like, unless you are also in the same field and unless someone is asking for some recommendations or your expertise, then
Yeah.
yeah, don't do that. But it's funny though because I thought it was just me. I'm sure it's not just me, but I'm saying hearing what you were saying earlier, it kind of made me feel good because these people seem to be like they just want to support you, right? They
Yeah.
want you to
Yeah.
grow some more, which is great. We
Yeah.
all need that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about support real quick, John. So
Yes. Actually, I was
you,
thinking of that. Yeah.
yeah, so you are married, and
Yep.
I know for a fact that your wife is very much a big supporter of what you do.
Yeah.
Can you
She
share a little
is.
bit about that journey? And I know a lot of people who are listening to this podcast are probably thinking, I also want to start my own content creation journey, but I don't have the support. Or some
Yeah.
people have already started but are complaining, or maybe complaining is too harsh of a word, but they're expressing
Yeah.
how there's a lack of support. So share your perspective on that topic.
Yeah. So when I thought about starting a YouTube channel, she was more like not really sure what that entails. She was like,
Hmm.
okay. I'm like, yeah, I've been thinking about it for years. Like I've always wanted to start one, but I never thought or had an idea what it's going to be about. And so I kind of shared that. And I think a lot of it boils down to our side really, because we can't expect our partners, our parents to understand that what content creation is, because you are studying it, I assume, right? If you're thinking of starting a YouTube channel, you've been thinking about it, you've talked to people about it, you've watched a ton of YouTube videos how to start, but they didn't. So they don't know the economics of how that works, how if it's even viable for you as a career if you want to do that. And so I think it's just a lot of, lack of a better word, hand holding in the beginning, just telling her like every step that I'm doing. And
Hmm.
initially, what's good was, other than buying lights and a mic, I didn't really spend on anything because I was reviewing products I already had. And so I think she was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're not spending money and you made $3 on this video. Nice for
Yeah.
your 8
Yeah.
hours of time." Yeah. So it was like just that in the beginning, just
Yeah.
showing her like, "Hey, I did this and it made me $3 this month. Last month it did me like $1.50." And just like
Hmm.
showing her, like sharing her the process and just like how I see each move that I make as a win and how that turns out into not necessarily just profit, but like how that fulfills me. And
Yeah.
then she sees that joy in me, and just like that, maybe I'm happier at the house, I'm less stressed, and all of that. And then I think it naturally comes easier for that person to support you when they see like, oh, this is actually doing the John good. Like this is actually helping him a lot. And so, yeah, she's been very supportive. And like recently, I was like, man, I don't really know. Like, I feel like I don't know what to create. And then I talked to her about the iPad mini, and she was like, yeah, why don't you buy the iPad mini and review it? I'm like, wait, are you sure? And I was like, it was like, like now she's suggesting things that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can review. And when before she's probably like, no, don't spend money on that. Like, no, we
Yeah.
don't need it.
That's
You don't
actually
need it. You have so much. Yeah.
that's great because she's definitely on your side, and she has that faith in what you're in what you do, your capabilities and your
Yeah.
potential,
Yeah.
and that's great. So it's not the
Sometimes more
case
than
for
me. Yeah.
sometimes more than you. That's actually really great because
Yeah.
we all need that, right? We all need
Yeah.
that. Um, it's a welcomed gesture
Yeah.
from anyone, right? It doesn't have to be your spouse or anything. It's just sometimes when I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this feel like no one's supporting them, but I promise you, there are people who support you. They just don't know how to express it, or they
Yeah.
have very different ways of expressing it. John and I actually had this conversation a while back, and John's situation is very. It's wonderful that his wife is fully supporting him in that sense. And I told John, I said, my wife isn't the same way, but don't quote. I mean, it's funny because if you isolate that sound bit, it sounds like I'm just like
You'll see
throwing her under
Michael's
the bus.
next week just all wrecked.
It's outside.
Yeah.
No, my wife is not the same way in the sense that she will suggest stuff to me. She will say, "Oh, what are you doing?" Or all that stuff. She's more of the she won't get in my way. She'll let me do the things that I need to do. So, say for example, like this morning, like I told her I'm going to do a podcast, and she just made sure that she's out of the second floor of the house because her office is right next to mine, and usually she's on the phone, she's making a lot of noise. So that's her way of supporting me. But I do want to talk about like the whole reasoning, right? Like why we need support and why we're looking for support. It can vary from person to person, but to me personally, it's to try to get me through the hard days. Really,
Yeah.
that's all the support that I need. And I
Yeah.
think John was correct when he said that you shouldn't be relying on that anyway. Did you say that earlier, or was that just in my head? Like you should be
Maybe.
relying on.
I'm not sure.
I'm not even sure. We can go back to the tape.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, let us
It
know.
might have been from
Yeah.
a previous conversation that we had, or I don't know if you said it earlier. But basically, I think that we shouldn't rely the things that we do based on we can't depend on what other people say, because like what John said earlier, he said that you're doing the research, you're studying YouTube, you're studying social media because you want to get better at it, you want to succeed, right? So you can't expect people to who have not put in the same amount of work and energy and time
Yeah.
on that research. You can't expect them to say, yeah, do this. They can't be behind you 100%. Not yet, not in the beginning, because only you can see that vision. Only you have that vision
Yeah.
and can understand where you want to take yourself, right? So it would be unfair for for people to say they don't support me, because they're not saying this, they're not saying that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
people
they
just show
can't.
support different ways. Yeah.
Yes, they can definitely support in very different ways. So I just wanted to point that out, because if you're listening to this and you're saying, well, that's it, my journey is over because John's wife is super supportive, mine isn't, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's not the
Yeah.
case. Because
Yeah.
if I were to share my all the stuff that I went through, I'm still going through.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I would also appreciate any sort of support, because it's to get me through the hard days.
Yeah.
But you know what's amazing though? And this one, personally, I can attest to this. The fun thing about going through the hard days without support, I'm using air quotes on the word support, is that once you get to those good days, once you have momentum, suddenly you have a bunch of supporters.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of supporters that you never knew supported you. And this just proves my point. People are just uncomfortable or a little
Yeah.
afraid to express how they feel, because they're not sure what you're doing. They're not really sure if what you're doing is correct. And obviously everyone wants to be on the winning side.
Yeah.
So no one's going to rally behind you if they think you're losing. You know what I mean? But in the beginning, you're not necessarily losing. You're still finding your footing. You're finding your way. And then once you figure things out, then you'll start to see all those people who will say, we've always been, I've always supported you and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
keep your head down, keep working, just do you, right? That's what I would say. Just do you, and don't mind don't try not to focus too much on the whole I don't have a support system thingy.
Yeah.
But
That's actually
Yeah.
what's good about share. We were talking about earlier about sharing with friends or family. So, like, I think the very first video I posted, which was like iPad for architects, um, I shared it after a couple of weeks in my Facebook, and that's directly like all personal connections, right? None of that was like social media, and I was like, this is a big step, but I shared it, and I think that's part of the reason why it got a lot of views in the beginning was people were just sharing it. Hey, John is doing this. John is doing this thing. John is doing content creation. And I think that's why every time you start something, the spike is so high in the beginning, is because everyone is just sharing it. Like in the
Right. Yeah.
beginning, especially if you're
Hmm.
just starting out. But what's cool is recently I posted like that I left my job and then shared my recent like home office upgrade, and people that I haven't talked to for years and people that I've probably encountered maybe a handful of times shared that post. Just like it's just crazy too that once you start sharing your stuff to people, family and friends, people will actually can show support more. Because if you don't
Hmm.
let them in, they won't have an opportunity to share it. They won't have an opportunity to support you. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword where we're hesitant to share it, but at the same time, when you share it, that's actually when people can show you more support and love. And
That's
it,
very good. That's very good.
yeah,
I
that's
like
what
that.
yeah, recently I was just like, wow, this person shared this post on his Facebook. And we're not really close friends. We're just
Yeah.
Facebook friends. And it was just like,
Hmm.
wow. Yeah, and a couple of people
That's
did
really
that.
good.
And it was like, wow, thank you guys. Yeah.
So that's a good point because a lot of people don't feel comfortable supporting you without anything. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're not equipping them with the proper tools to support you with, right?
Yeah.
You can't just say support me and then people will search for your stuff and be like, "Here's my friend John." You know what I mean? But yes, if you share it with your friends and family, then the likelihood of them resharing it or supporting you out in the open is higher.
Yeah. I
So
actually
that's a good tip. Yeah.
in our videos, right? We try to leave a call to action. Like, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. I think that a call to action is even more effective with family and friends because you already know them and they're more likely to just do that. So if you tell them and reinforce it and say, yeah, if you share this video, that would really help me a lot. Push my content to other people out there. Thank you for sharing it. Appreciate you guys. Thank you in advance. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I think that just makes it like that much more effective. It's actually more effective.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, just thinking about it right now, like when you ask your friends and family, I think you need to be a little bit more specific than just saying, share my stuff. Because, let's face it, family and friends, sometimes they just don't care, right? They
Yeah.
don't care. But if you give them a reason behind it, if you give them a sense of why you want them to share it, like if you share this, it's going to help me reach more people and it's going to help me reach out to other brands. It's going to help me
Yeah.
grow my channel. It's going to help me put food on the table, something more specific. Then
Yeah.
they can get behind that, right? They have a reason now to share it other than just, I'm just supporting him because he told me to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I think we should consider.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I think that feels a lot less uh what's the word? I can't it's not because I feel sleazy asking for
Mm.
people to support
Yep.
me
Yeah.
without a reason, right? Like, but if I say something like, guys, like I just, published a new video about this and I really want to reach this brand. This is like the stepping stone towards that direction. So I
Yeah.
would really appreciate it if you guys could give it a watch and share it. And obviously, yeah, I actually also encourage that. I encourage you to ask them to watch it,
Yeah.
right? Watch my content or view, not just like it for the sake of liking it, right? So definitely because you need feedback too,
Yeah.
and That's actually a nice other thing that I'd like to talk to you about, John. So who gives you the most feedback in your stuff? Is it the audience, just like me?
Yeah, the audience for sure. I love you guys. The keyboard warriors. No. No, yeah, I think before we jump on that, I just want to touch on. I think another reason why we want support was how isolating this job and profession can be.
Yes.
Like unlike in a normal office setting, of course, you have other people you talk to. You when things are not going well. Ideally, you can talk to your peers. You have your boss to kind of like help you, direct you in a way. This one, you're on your own, and for the most part, you are responsible for every content that goes in and out, and any money that goes in and out. And so, yeah, everything is just on your shoulders. And like, you've heard it so many times. We are more than just a videographer. We can be photographers, script writers, editors, all that stuff. And so, yeah, I think that's one thing about support and reach out to recently. Like I felt this even more. Even big creators are isolated. Even like
Oh yeah.
millions of subscribers, they still feel isolated. And if you reach out to them, they're actually more open to sharing what they know and like just connect with people. So I think we're all kind of in the same journey.
Yeah, because that's a misconception. Like the higher your number, you feel like people they are surrounded by those actual numbers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it's even the opposite. Because it's like, just think about it. Like the higher the number a creator has, it's a lot more intimidating to actually approach them.
Yeah.
Because people, right? You tend to think that, okay, they're not even going to pay attention to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So imagine that multiplied by how many followers they actually have. So it's like, yeah, the chances of people reaching out to them are lower, I think. So it's even more isolating. Some people like that, some people don't. But John is correct. It's very lonely. The best way to describe it, really, it's really lonely. Yeah, and that's why I appreciate my friendship with John, because over the how many months now, like every now and then, I would just like send him a message or text him. I'll be like, hey, what are you working on? Or whatever. Because it's like you said, like it feels like suddenly you have a coworker.
Yeah.
And that's the aspect that I miss the most from working at an actual office space. Just being able to chat with people.
Yeah. Me too.
So John and I and a couple of other people meet occasionally just to chat about what we're doing, maybe give each other support.
Yeah.
Because it's very important. And that's actually, again, I've said this before, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to start a podcast and why Chelsea and I started Coffee with Creators, because we wanted to be that support system for creators out there.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this podcast episode, I'm going to use this opportunity for a plug, John.
Yeah. Do it.
Reach out to us. Let us know if you want to be on the show. If you want to just say hi, to just hang out or whatever, just reach out to us and, we'll have you on the show and we'll just chat, and it doesn't have to be any specific topic. We'll keep it casual. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to do that little plug, John.
Yeah,
anyway,
no, I think you guys are doing a good job actually. And that's the reason why I found, like I said, I was listening to Coffee with Creators before we were friends. And that's the reason why I listened to it, was just the fact that, it's like, when you're working and you're hearing your coworkers talk about projects or stuff, it's like that to me. It's like, I'm hearing Chelsea and Michael and a guest or whatever talk about a project that I can relate to, that I can associate myself with. And it was just like a good kind of background noise in a way.
Yes. And we are completely fine being background noises to you guys.
No, it's like, it's so brainless is the thing. It's like, it just blends in. You don't feel like you have to focus so much to get value out of it. And that's what I like about it. It's easy listening.
It's casual.
Yeah.
I think, hopefully. Yeah, definitely. Because,
to say that, by the way. Just kidding.
I'll send you the check, John.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, when we first started, we were so value focused. Obviously, we never hit those numbers because we're like, we want to bring value for every episode. But then I realized that there's a disconnect somehow. Some people just want to hear people talk. Some people just want to be able to relate. Some people just want to when I'm expressing, for example, my frustrations, for the stuff that I'm doing. Some people out there are listening and they feel the same way, but they just didn't know that other people are actually going through the same thing. And just by hearing that, by hearing other people's woes, kind of is uplifting in a way.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to be that community. You just, your soundboard, basically. Yeah, complain to us. Let's celebrate your wins, and let's think about your all these little whatever challenges that you might have, and maybe we can work through it together, right? So that's the hope. Because definitely when I first started my Instagram journey, nowhere. I tried actively looking for people that can be my support. I didn't have any. I couldn't find anyone. So it's a very lonely game. But now hopefully we can keep this community growing. But yeah. So thank you, John. Thank you for finding us. And thank you for using us as background noise.
Yeah. Chelsea's voice is more. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, Chelsea. Come back, Chelsea.
Yeah. Chelsea, we miss you.
Chelsea, help us. Yeah. But yeah, so we were talking about
feedback.
What did I say?
Feedback. Like who?
Feedback, that's it. So
feedback. Yeah.
In terms of feedback, who do you get your feedback from?
My wife is also the top one, but of course there's a little bit of not necessarily bias, but of course like she's more graceful and like she gives me more grace when it comes to like, oh, I missed this part, or I should have done this shot better. I've been asking, well, you and another guy in our group, Shangran, a little bit about like, what to do with the video ideas and whatnot. But I typically try to read and respond to each comment. But yeah, sometimes the comments there are not very constructive. It's more like I hate your face.
What do you mean sometimes? This is just me that's all the time?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying because some people actually leave like constructive comments, and I'm like, oh, yes. I can like agree with that, and I see where you're coming from, but this is my style, and this is what I want, and so this is what I'm doing. Yeah, but I understand why you don't like it. Like somebody commented on my Embody Herman Miller chairs. Like, am I the only one who sees this as ugly? It doesn't match like John's sophisticated like office, blah 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 blah. I'm like, actually, I can't agree with that. Like, I think there are better chairs that fit my office, but the comfort of it is just like second to none. And mostly when I'm sitting on it, you guys don't even see the back.
Yeah.
So
I'm like, standing right now. You don't even see any of my chairs.
Yeah. So some of them are really constructive like that. I'm like, I agree. And so it just challenges me too. Sometimes there are good comments out there. I don't want to discourage anybody and feel like all you guys hate. Actually, I feel like I get more recently. I get more love than hate.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's good.
So,
we need more of those.
Yeah.
Bring the hate to me.
No.
No, actually, I'm just kidding. I had too much already.
Yeah.
I have way too much already.
Comments. I don't know. Michael is like the nicest guy too that I've met in this content creation journey, and he gets the most hate out of everyone I know.
Well, it's I'm just trying to reach, or I'm just trying to increase my engagement. That's all. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. So
that's actually Michael's marketing plan.
It is
publicity stunt. It's like, how can I trigger people? Yeah.
So to all the haters out there, I know you're listening to this. Thank you.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. No, but seriously, that was just a joke. But seriously, listening to feedback is one of the most important things, because that will help us determine, help us plan our direction, where you want to go, where you want to take it. So I think everyone who starts their content creation journey has a big goal in mind, and it can be a petty goal, right? Like, it can be like, I just want free stuff. I just want 100,000 followers or something like that. That's not a petty goal, actually. That's a pretty good goal.
Yeah, that's
having
a big
100,000 followers, but that's a big goal. But my point is, we all have goals, and what it really is when you start your journey, you're going to be figuring things out. There's no one trick that we can all use. There's a bunch of little tips that we can all implement, but there's no one path because every journey is so different. And so it's important for us to listen to feedback because that's the only way that we can align our goal with. Okay, so think of feedback as basically you're following a path, right? Your path is your main goal. Like you see the goal and you're just following this path. And sometimes we stray, sometimes we step off like to the side. The feedback that we get, we should use that feedback as basically like little bumpers on the side, basically telling you to get back on the path, right? So take the feedback that will take you back on to the path. But for the rest of them, for all the trolls, don't mind them because they'll never go away.
Yeah.
You know, if you can, have fun with them because that does increase engagement.
Yeah.
So that's my, honestly, that's my tip. So, but that's my style. That's my style of doing. Some people just turn off the comments, or some people just block them. That's okay. That's also a good tactic, right? We're all different, but we listen to feedback because that's really important, and we should always have that sense of like basically that desire to learn and to be able to. You have to be coachable, is what I'm trying to get at. Because if you can't be coachable, then it's going to be a lot lonelier during your journey. Yeah. It's going to be a lot tougher mentally, emotionally, and even physically if we don't know how to listen to feedback.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know if you all want to add anything else on that.
No,
topic,
I agree.
John.
Like, and I think sometimes, like, I think it's good to turn it off sometimes if you feel like you can't handle the comments.
Yes, that's totally okay too.
It can be like very personal sometimes, and you're just like, oh my gosh, just very, very triggered. Because people will find ways to spin whatever it is that you're saying or whatever it is you're suggesting, just so they can fit this narrative of like, oh yeah, you're not a good reviewer or whatever because you didn't do this, that. But at the same time, you can also spin that and think about it in a good way of like, maybe there is some truth to it, but yeah, sometimes deleting it is good. But like Michael, I also like responding. It makes me feel like, I'm teaching them at least like, okay, you can't just do this to everybody.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not the only person they're doing it to. And it's like, here's the truth and take whatever you can from it.
It's mostly, I think from that perspective, it's mostly about showing other people who are reading the comments that this person is just being silly, right? So it's like someone says, I hate that keyboard. I'm like, okay, it's not for you. That's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have Mr. So-and-so's name on it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's fine. And that's the thing. Like, you have to be fine with that. Actually, John, before we get into like this whole topic, I want to talk about this recent video that you just published. Because you mentioned the home office and your wife was giving you feedback. I understand this was a very big project for you and you worked really hard on this. And I know this for a fact. You're like so frustrated to get this done.
Yeah.
And you're like thinking about every single thing about this video. So let's talk about that home office redesign video that you just did. What was the inspiration for that? I see it in your background right now.
Yeah. So the inspiration was basically just I left my job, and typically when you leave your job, there's a change in your physical environment. Like you leave the office physically, and it's such an empowering and freeing thing to, especially if you've been wanting to leave, right? Whether it's toxic or not. Like if you want to leaving your job physically, that's just freeing and empowering. And so I didn't have that. When I left, it actually was so like anticlimactic because I've been wanting to leave for about 2 years. And then last year, I've been working in this home office for about a year and a half. I've been working in this space. So it's the same space, but now I have a different job, quote unquote, different job because I'm still in architecture, but now I'm calling myself also a full-time content creation.
You just have a new hat that you wear at the same time.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I need to change things up so that I can change my mindset too. And so I was like, oh, I need to redesign the office. Actually, what's sad kind of was I was really happy with the space that I had. but I just know myself and I've already built habits using that space. And I was like, one of the best ways to disrupt bad habits is to just change things up where you do those bad habits, air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to redesign the space. And yeah, like what you said, planned. It took me like maybe 2 or 3 schemes, more like times 30 or something.
I think it was like 5 at the minimum.
No. It was like 20. I had 20
Was it
schemes for
20?
this office space. I was so indecisive because I was like, it had to be better. And that was because of, I wanted to be good for the video.
Yeah.
There was that struggle of like, I wanted to be good for the video, good enough to create a video on. But at the same time, I wanted to be functional.
Yes.
Which was good, actually,
Because
it really
you still
challenged
see
me.
clients, right?
Yeah,
you still see clients face to face. Okay.
Yeah, so I meet with clients. I shoot my videos here. Product photography here. I have future projects that I want to do in this space, and so like I want to accommodate all of that. But it was good because this scheme wasn't a part of the original 20 or whatever, however much it was.
Yeah, I remember that because it's like last minute. You're like, I'm gonna change it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, John.
I sent Michael a picture, and he was like, "Oh, I like it." I'm like, and then I texted him, "Actually, I didn't go with the same scheme that I showed you last time." And no, it was challenging, but it was. I'm really happy right now. Like, I feel like I'm actually productive, and it fits the season that I'm in. Like, that's the best way I could say it. I had a better desk setup before, but now I feel like I have a better home office.
It's a good. That's definitely a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
A better home office, because before it was just a desk. It's kind of like how I feel about my space. Started off with just a desk, and
Yeah.
like you, I wanted it to be more. Mine was more emotional in the sense that I just wanted to be inspired because it literally just started with my iMac. I like looking at my iMac. I had nothing around it, and I had a big desk. I'm like, let me put this in. Let me put this there. And then I found myself, because back then I was working with clients from the East Coast. So I was up as early as 4 o'clock in the morning. And so the first thing I did was I'd make coffee, go, head into my office and sit down. And I needed to be inspired for me to get into that working mindset.
Yeah.
And then it just evolved into something like this. But so going back to your office redesign, John, I love the way it looks, especially the colors that you chose. It's very different from what I usually see. I know like the dark theme is kind of like popular right now,
Yeah.
but John really stuck with his dark green like motif and wood accents, right? The walnut finish.
Yeah.
Looks really, really good. Was this part of like your overall plan, or was this scheme number 342 or something?
I actually was gonna go lighter on paint, on the paint of the walls. I was gonna do it more like the same white, light gray wall that I have here. If you guys are watching on the video, but because I like how I look, the contrast of my skin with just the white walls. That's basically my reason. But I started painting it light. I put actually a couple of lighter greens and then this light wall, and I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. It felt like the edge of the space was lost. Because I did like the dark walls, but I was like, I wanted to make a splash and actually change things up. But then I'm like, okay, then I'm doing that for the viewers more than for myself. And so finding that balance was important. And so I was like, maybe I can change the tone at least. That will be enough for me. So I changed it to dark green from like a dark blue, which was big because I actually look at it and I'm like, wow, this green wall is beautiful. Right now, you can't really tell. I don't have lights on.
I can tell from my screen. Yeah, it looks really good. I've seen pictures too.
Yeah.
So I actually know where John lives now. I've seen all of his layouts. I'm like, John, I can literally just like go to your house and know every access point.
Yeah.
Because you've shown me so many.
But what
That's the
Michael
joke.
forgets is I bought his slider one time, and he has his
That's
address
right.
on there too. So
He knows where I live.
yeah, we're on equal footing here.
Okay. I'll stop threatening you now.
No,
So now that what's that?
Go
What
ahead.
were you saying?
No, I was just like, yeah. So it kind of evolved to, I mean, I was trying to do something more drastic, but I had to stay true to what I like more than just the video. Even though some
Okay.
people, I actually was expecting a lot more people to say, I like how it was before
Hmm.
more than how you have it now, which was, I was like ready for seeing, but
Hmm.
I only got one comment saying that so far.
Okay, well, that's great because actually I was going to say that. I was going to say that what I love about this is because obviously the desk setup, the home office thing is kind of like the thing on YouTube right now, at least for in our space, right?
Yeah,
Like it's a content that everyone can make and everyone wants to share and a lot of people share their spaces and for personal reasons. But the problem is when people watch so many of these videos, they always have this preconceived notion of how a space should be. They
yeah,
forget that a space should always cater to you, who is actually using it, right? Who lives in it. Who
exactly.
cares what people think or say about your space? They're not here, right? So I'm glad that what you've found so far is that people are like, oh yeah, that's great. And I think mainly that's because John is not shy to share about why he moved things, why he did things in a certain way, because he always goes back to this whole, it's for me. I'm being
Yeah,
genuine. This is my life. And I think that's very important. And it's one of the most important things, I think, in social media is to be as authentic. You know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah,
nice to say, I put a bunch of screens on my wall. I'm like, that's cool, but do you really use it or is it just for show?
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So that's when you start to feel like, oh, I feel like an imposter here. But John, I think, has stayed true to who he is and what he does. And you'll definitely see that in the feedback that he gets from his audience. So that's
Yeah,
great, John. So it's still in line with what you usually do, which is architecture.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I kind of, oh, I mean, my space is like 10'4" by 11'9". So it's like, how many times can I redesign this? And I know that I feel like right now, this setup right here is going to be how it's going to be for a little while. And
Mm-hmm.
so this has been like super fun doing desk setups, but I know I have to transition off of that or start helping other people out. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things I found that I want to do that is I've I'm working on this video, and it kind of goes in line with what you were saying. Like, I don't want to come off as like an expert, although I am an architect, but I just want to share my process, and I want to share how I design spaces. And so
Yes.
the next thing that I was going to do is a video on how this came about. Why is it designed this way? Why wasn't it scheme one? Why wasn't it scheme two, three, four, five, up to 20, right? So I was just wanting to do a breakdown of that and share tips and tools on how you can get an optimized home office design. Not necessarily a desk setup, but home office design. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, and my premise of that was I was scared too to do that video because I'm like, wow, everyone's gonna look at this. You're a professional, and you have to be on point with everything. But I was just
Yeah.
like, at the very beginning of this video, I'm basically just saying, hey, this is how I approach when I design something. Architects,
Yes.
it's a very personal and creative process, and that can vary from person to person. This is how I do mine, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you can get something from it. So it's
Yeah,
that
that's
same
great.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great because now your brand is just John Imperial, right? Like
Yeah.
this is something that John would like. This is something that John would do. So it's not like this is what an architect would do. I
Yeah.
mean, I've always said this as well, like for graphic design, because I'm a graphic designer, basically. That's my
Yeah.
day job. I'm not the best graphic designer, but I approach things in very different ways. And I think one of the things that I've leaned into very heavily is that recognizing that I'm not the best at what I do, right? Like,
Mm,
I'm not the best at photography. I'm not the best at graphic design. I'm not the best at podcasting by far. So, not the best at all, especially YouTube. However, I do all of these things my
yeah.
way, a certain style, just that Michael style. And that is my strongest trait is that I'm able to infuse my style into these things. And that resonates with some people. It doesn't resonate with others. And that's okay. But at least I can be comfortable in sharing it and say, I like this because I like it. I don't like this because I don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. We don't have to dive into like the whole philosophical, whatever it is, the mumbo jumbo that people think about, or even just earlier, actually, they're like, I don't like the keyboard. The keys are too small.
Mm.
I'm like, how am I supposed to respond to that? Okay. Do you
Yeah.
have humongous fingers? Because I don't. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, people are just like that. But so John, what's next for your journey? Since I know you're still starting off, and I know you've gotten a lot of like really good traction lately in the last few months.
Yeah.
And I can see your channel growing like really fast too. You've started working with brands, and you and I talk about this a lot. But aside from just helping other people, what's next? Can we expect more architectural stuff like inspiration, tutorials? What are you thinking?
So we haven't said it here yet, but yeah, I'm starting my own architecture firm. So
Oh,
I am actually trying to share a little bit of that process and just like what it's actually like being an architect and a content creator, and just trying to figure out how much to share, because I don't want it to be just architecture focused. I want it to be as John focused as possible. And I am an architect, and I feel like I should share that in the channel. So that'll be a natural thing that I'll be posting on there, thinking about like some day in the life videos, which was a plan back in 2020, but nobody was meeting. No one was doing like in-person meetings. I don't want to record Zoom meetings and share that. But yeah, so that's happening. Yeah. A part of my architecture business, I'm trying to double down on YouTube. Like I really enjoy this whole process of video creating, scripting, taking pictures and all of that. So that's going to be something too that I'm going to be focusing on. And tech, of course, is always a part of the channel. I love tech, like my wife says.
okay.
I have too much tech stuff, so that's going to be happening. And yeah, I think what's next is I think I'm just going to be more free now to share, really, because I felt like I couldn't share architecture in my channel because I was in this limbo of like, I want to leave. So I don't, why am I going to share this part of it right now? Which actually could have been a good video. But sometimes once that veil is gone, then now you can share more about that because you're through it. Sometimes it's easier to talk about it after it's done than when you're going through it. And
Correct.
so, yeah, just a lot of that right now. And the biggest thing that I'm excited for is that breakdown of this office space, because I really was thinking about like, why do people watch this home office videos or desk videos? It's because they aspire to have something similar. So it's like, how can I help them get there one way or another, even if it's just in a simple video, other than just, hey, buy this. Oh, you see this in my video? It looks nice, right? So if you buy something similar, you'll get it. I just want to give a little bit more reasoning. And I'm super excited with that because it's a clash of all of the things I love. Again, just like everyday life, architecture, design, and then, of course, tech. There's going to be some tech aspects to it because, it's part of your home
You can't
office.
have enough of tech.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I'm going to put the pressure on you, John.
yeah.
Can we expect a podcast?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so
John,
that's going to be...
John started sweating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. So that is also in the works. We'll announce that more in couple of weeks.
John looks so uncomfortable. He's like, shuffle along, hurry up, let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah, no. I've been thinking about doing a podcast, and it's been something I've wanted to do for a while, just because I love conversing. I love talking to people, and I've talked to Michael about podcasting, hence why he's pressuring me so much.
Yeah.
No, so
the pressure on John.
It is coming. Wait for the announcement. I'll post it on my socials for sure. Okay. And yeah, it's happening.
All right, I was gonna spoil some more, but then things, knowing John, this podcast could be like iteration number 48.
No.
So.
It's actually like we're right there. We're right there.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll let John announce what it is that he plans to do, because that's exciting. And I really hope you start your podcast, because it's I think it's an interesting concept, and I think a lot of people would love to listen to that type of content.
What were you gonna spoil? Go ahead, spoil it.
Oh, I was just gonna spoil the whole theme of it, like what you were gonna do.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I'll share it. I don't mind sharing it.
Okay.
Let's say it real quick. So basically, I'm thinking about starting a podcast called "Figuring It Out." I don't know if I'm
Mm-hmm.
calling it the figuring it out or the figuring it out podcast or just figuring it out, but it's that one of those two. And the whole premise is like we have all figured out something or we are all figuring something out. And I just want to be able to create a time and a space wherein we can talk about those victories,
Mm-hmm.
small victories, it may be, but even like big victories or even things that we are still trying to figure out. And I want to create a space where we can talk about that, bring in guests when they can share about, hey, like, what are you figuring out right now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
Let's give them an example, John. So, for example, actually, no, just give us an example of what an episode would be like, figuring
oh,
something what out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be as simple as, like, how do I figure out where to go for college? What do I want to do for college? That's actually a heavy topic. But,
Mm-hmm.
or like as simple as, so that's not as simple as that. That one's a heavy one. But it could be as simple as how I figured out that I wanted to start a podcast. How do I
Mm-hmm.
start a YouTube channel? How I figured out that. And so, like for me, the biggest thing, and it's probably going to be the pilot episode, is just like how I embraced or how I figured out that I was a multi-passion person and how I am embracing that.
You're right. Yeah. So, from what I gather, from
Yeah.
what you are planning to do, it's not a how-to podcast.
Yeah, no.
It's more on sharing perspective so that you can make better decisions based on experiences that are from different people. And so John doesn't, it's not just John who's going to talk
Oh,
all
definitely no. I
right in
can't do
all the
that.
podcasts.
Yeah.
It's yeah, he'll have different guests and people from all walks of life and people from different with different experiences, different fields, and it can
Yeah.
be as mundane as like, how did I figure out how to do the laundry? Maybe not like that, but
Yeah,
you know what I
not the
mean?
laundry, but
Something
yeah.
simple, yeah, and something more
Yeah. And
philosophical
it's
maybe.
yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be guest driven because I want it to be
Mm-hmm.
authentic. So whatever they feel like they want to impart or they're like really struggling with,
Mm-hmm.
that's very welcomed, whether you figured it out or you're not. And the whole premise of it is the more I get older, the more I meet people, small creators, big creators, like teenagers, adults, young people, like very like, past in their 60s, I feel like we're still all just figuring it out.
Yes. That's
And it's
very
like,
true.
okay, how can I learn from the things that you're figuring out? And how can I maybe help you in the things that you're figuring out if it's applicable,
Right. Now,
Yeah.
so ladies and gentlemen, you now understand why I'm excited for this podcast and why I want John to start this. Because I definitely want, it's one of those things that I definitely want to hear from people. Like,
Yeah.
how did you figure out it's more than just how do you become a coder, for example.
Yeah.
First of all, how did
Yeah.
you figure out that that's what you wanted to do? Or how did you
Yeah.
find a school? How did you find, like it's a little bit more um specific. No, not specific. I don't know if it's specific, but it's not the conventional topic that
Yeah.
I think
There's a lot
people
of
cover or
reasoning.
talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasoning behind it. Yeah, definitely personality and experience. So I'm
Yeah.
excited. I really hope you start it, John, and let the audience know. Sorry, there's a
Definitely.
plane passing by. I mean, I swear to God, today was just like such a challenging day this
All of the
morning.
transportations are passing by Michael's house.
I actually live under a bridge because there's the garbage truck, the garage door opener, and now there's a plane. Everything's just like passing by. I'm just waiting for a tank to pass by next.
So one thing I want to add to that, Michael, was just like I want to bring different voices because I feel like people are more receptive to a certain type of voice. And the more diverse people I bring, the more diverse voices I give a platform to, the more value that can give to people. And that's basically the whole thing about the show. It doesn't even have to be you figured out something. Just come on because you'll say something and you'll impart something that somebody probably hasn't unlocked yet, air quotes.
I get that. I completely get what you're saying, and that can be another topic. It's about like sharing advice or whatever, or listening to advice. It's very interesting. because that's one of the things I also realized later on in life. But let's talk about that on a different episode, because I feel like we're going to really dive deep into that. But we've probably reached like the end of the podcast, because I can see in my counter that's we're about that time. So John, I always say this to every guest. Chelsea usually does, but she's not here. But you're more than welcome to be a part of this podcast. Again, thank you for being a part of this community, for the friendship, for all the support. And the doors are always open. So we just have to find a time, and we'd love to have you back on the Coffee with Creators podcast.
Yeah,
but before we end it, of course, before we end this, can you share with the ladies and gentlemen where they can find you? And just do your little housekeeping thingy.
Yeah. So you guys can find me over on YouTube. It's just John Imperial, JONIMPERIAL, like Imperial March for Star Wars, or Imperial Army for like Mulan or something.
I wish
Imperial Butter. And same thing for Instagram, at John Imperial. And if you are Filipino or are interested in my life with my wife, just check out our YouTube channel as well, John and Emily, Joanne and Emily.
Oh yeah, that's your vlog, right?
Yeah, it's like more
of a vlog. Is that
challenges, things like that, cute and cheesy stuff,
Cute and cheesy.
It can be cheesy.
All right. So I have a couple of things I actually wanted to share before I end this podcast. And first of all is that we are now sharing this podcast on YouTube. So please do check us out on YouTube. It is Coffee. Oh crap! I see. I'm not ready for this stuff. But anyway, you can find it. Just Google or just search on YouTube Coffee with Creators podcast, and it should pop up, because we want to be more visible. It's very different when people can see body language.
Podcast.
There you go. See? Thank you, John.
I got you. And
I actually wanted to read a message that I received just recently. So, hey, look at this. We got our own mail. It's been a while since I actually did this. So, someone on Instagram sent me this message, and I'm just going to read this very quickly. This message came from Richard, and he said, let's see. I can't even start. Okay. Your last two podcasts with This Is E and Brady has led me to send this DM to you. Love the content and design work that you do, and lots of thanks to you and Chelsea for setting up this Coffee with Creators podcast. I've learned so much from the podcast and your thinking and your creative style. You have invited two wonderful creators in the last two podcasts. Their experience and perspective are amazing. I have a humble tech channel and a really small one, and have been enjoying the video creations productions on my channel for just over a year. So it's I just wanted to say thank you for sending that message. That message actually goes a little bit longer, but I didn't want to share everything that he said, because obviously. But yeah, so thank you for sending that feedback and that very heartfelt message. I encourage you guys to send me and Chelsea a message on the Coffee Creators Instagram account, which is Coffee W Creators on Instagram, or just email us at coffeewithcreatorspodcast@gmail.com. I'm sorry, that's a long email address, but I couldn't find anything else. And as always, don't forget to share us with your friends and family and your pets, your neighbors, I always say, and definitely leave us some feedback, because that does help us get better and grow. And so I think that's pretty much it. So if you want to be a part of the show, again, please reach out, just let us know, and we'll schedule you right in. So John, thank you again for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I'll just see you around Instagram.
Yeah, thanks again.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the Coffee Creators. This is Michael, and Chelsea's not here, but she's on vacation. We miss you, Chelsea. See you guys again next week.